right, so this is the September 28th general meeting of the Board of Public Works. The entire board is present. Ex officio, the mayor, general manager, assistant general manager, and legal counsel is here. And so we'll get started. Vice President's report or the consent agenda, excuse me.
Can we pull the finance out of the consent agenda and review that? I think there's some information you wanted to walk us through.
Yeah, actually, I was.
Yeah.
And I did have a question about that. Is that okay? Did you guys want
Oh.
the financials presented every month or quarterly?
Completely up to you.
Wait, what's he asking for?
Financials.
Financials reported.
Do
I
you
know what
want
I would ask.
I would recommend every month
That's what I would.
I
recommend.
agree. Yeah.
as part of the consent agenda.
Yeah.
All right, so then we'll move on. Let's do the financial report.
Mr. President, I think you need to vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
With the removal of the finance report.
Right.
second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now we go on to the finance report. So I guess Earl, if you want to start since you requested it.
I think our brainchild's right there for us.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so starting this month, we're having more highlights now that we're a little further into the budget. That's harder to predict. Industrial, we are lower than last year and actually the year before as well.
Your
And
year date.
this is just the month.
Okay.
And the year before for electric and water for industrial. This was 28 days instead of 32 compared to last year. So that does have a bit of a play on this, considering how much they use every day for industrial, specifically SPI. But when I zoned in on SPI, their electric usage was down by 15% and their water was down by 26%. I don't know if they're doing like shutdowns or cutting hours or what's going on there, but that's pretty big numbers. So
We typically ask them if it's that big of a delta.
We're probably going to start doing it. This was the first month that we really saw it.
For a while back, we were going to meet with them like quarterly. And I don't know if that continued. Then, no, then COVID came, yeah.
And municipal and Board of Public Works for electric, we are lower too from last year, and I have to look back 2 to 3 years to see these numbers. I did email Anne Marie and Ellen Lorraine to see if they have some kind of explanation of why we would be running more efficiently, possibly, that if they did any updates or upgrades or anything.
They beat their numbers every year.
Mhm.
So I don't know what they're doing, but it's working.
So I know
I
that
wish
we
our
did-
family would do that.
we did,
Just throw away every second. No.
I know that we did fix the AC unit, which I'm sure will have some effect on the bill.
Speaking of Bill.
Yeah, perfect timing.
Ellen Lorraine thinks that it is because we were being overbilled for streetlights and you guys replaced a meter on a streetlight that.
We did.
And our streetlight billing has gone down.
Yeah, we did redo this.
So I think that's,
Really?
because we can't think
Think
of
you're onto
anything else
something
that
there,
we've
Phil.
done.
Yeah, because it kind of surprised me, given
Yeah.
we had 3 weeks of ungodly
Right.
heat
Yeah.
in August.
We had,
See-
Well, and it's not,
Two.
that we've got super efficient stuff going
Yeah.
because with the HVAC broken, we've been having these temporary things. So it's not, I think that's the only thing Ellen Lorraine
Yeah.
can think of.
we did have 2 heat waves in this billing period as opposed to 1 heat wave of last year, the same period. So you do actually see an increase in residential, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But everything else is either at budgeted or below. Repairs and maintenance for electric, we're doing transformer preventive maintenance. That really should say PM, not just maintenance. And that's just the change of management going from reactive to proactive. For sewer, our chemicals.
For water, you know, I'm surprised the water went down too, for the same reasons.
Yeah, I mean.
I would think
thought
irrigation had to
irrigation-
shoot up.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers just look
Low.
very odd.
Yeah.
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 I agree. So the,
But if you look, at some of your water typically from irrigation coming from your outside the city customers that may have switched over to wells, on-site wells on Gill's net, you know.
Are they doing that? Do you know?
They have every right to do it. I'll put it to you that way.
I know a number of them did it in Schofield.
Yeah, Schofield, some of them installed,
Okay.
originally installed irrigation and then realized that they are outside the city, so they have nothing that prevents them from installing ag
Wow.
wells.
and I'm curious to see what next
Oh.
month's numbers are for water, because we did have like that section of no rain or anything for about 2 weeks.
If somebody cuts off their irrigation system, do they notify you? I guess not.
I'd have to check with the office to see.
Well, it would show up with. the
Well,
meter.
to show up on their meter
Meter, yeah.
readings.
Yeah, I don't, that's the only thing is I'd have to check with them.
But I've gotten calls from Schofield. I've gone out there and it's not connected. It's a well. So we probably need to adjust this kind of with that.
Same
number.
like Tower Hill, Harbor Point has the ability to do it.
So it might be good to pull the irrigation meter readings and see.
Yeah.
So I do put the numbers at the bottom, but that's just dollars. I couldn't tell you what the usage was for gallons, if it's better or worse. And for water under Board of Public Works, we had such high numbers from the past year from cleaning filters. So we're not cleaning filters as much,
Oh.
which I'm guessing that's a good thing,
Wow.
that we're not cleaning them as much. Okay.
Not running continuously, so they're not being pulled and just hanging there and then running
Yeah.
the water continuously on.
Line 12 for the repairs and maintenance, like I said, proactive versus reactive. For sewer, chemicals and Clean Delaware are our big hitters. Chemicals, I just want to give you a number compared to August of last year. Caustic soda is up 53%. Micro C1000 up 21%, and aluminum sulfate up 30% in prices. Our other supplies and expenses, we have some subscriptions that came out. Cyber liability, Office 365, and the cell monitoring fee specifically for sewer for the pump stations. Administrative, we had 3 pay periods in August, and now that we have 10 employees, so it hits a little harder. Impact fees, they are rising, but they are not rising as fast as I budgeted them.
Supply chain.
So at next quarter, I'm gonna talk to Austin to see if it's still realistic that these people are coming on before the end of the fiscal year, or if we need to change those numbers.
By way of example, so for like Lewes Waterfront Preserve, they ordered their transformers in one batch. They were given 20 X number of weeks, and we ordered similar time frame for ours. Don't know what's gonna happen with what's going on down in Florida and that impact on the supply chain. Because once the federal government steps in, they're gonna pull from what's readily available. And that's not gonna go just for electric, that's gonna go for water products, wastewater products, et cetera.
Well, and it's probably something we need to look at long-term for the future. Because, I mean, I saw interest rates, home interest rates are up to over 7% now. So they've doubled. And that could really affect the build out on these projects as well as supply chain.
Yeah, given the cost increases that we're seeing, whether it's this and it's also electric, which is heading our way, I wonder if we should have a review of kind of our, budgets and plans and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I just throwing it out there on the power side, we're seeing it come through on purchase power wholesale rate. We're looking at 10% increase with an additional increase probably that's just on our buying power. So what we're purchasing power for. So we're seeing that come through probably in the next month's bill. And we have kind of a benchmark of at least 2.5% starting in the beginning of the year. That's just,
Recommend another study being done for cost or?
I think the biggest thing is we're going to take a look at our PCA to make sure that's adjusted accordingly. It's still in credit mode, which means every month it's still providing a credit. As part of the cost of service study that was done in 2016, 2017, they took a look at the base fuel cost when they did that study. When they did the financial projection most recently, they didn't do the deep dive as a cost of service study. It's a timing thing too. So we're going to take a look at the PCA, make sure that's set correctly to make up for that cost adjustment for what we're selling our power for versus what we're paying for it on wholesale.
Yeah, and just, it's kind of a double hit. One is the cost of fuel. But equally, if not even more, is the shutdown of Indian River. Which DMAC has been absorbing. But is now going to start passing along. They've been absorbing it out of their reserve funds, which we've all paid into. And they can't continue to do that. So we're seeing, a 10% increase from
Over-
DMAC.
Over
in our
10%.
whole So it's,
And
I
that's
don't-
that's everybody. That's everybody that's impacted by the shutting down of the Indian River. And it's not even a shutting down. They were given permission to do so. And then they realized that the peaking factor of that unit needed to still be there to meet the demand. And so knowing that, there's a basically the ability, what was the exact term that's used for it? It's basically like to stand in cold idle.
oh, it's in cold shutdown.
Resiliency must
standby.
run.
Yeah, resiliency must run.
So the, and just so that everyone, the DMAC meeting covered this, but it's been a lot in the industry press. So Indian River is shut down. It's sitting there in a cold condition. It will take 48 to 72 hours to restart that plant. So the idea that that plant is in standby is a little bit facetious. It could be brought back up in the long term for a disaster, but it is not sitting there to back up the Delmarva Peninsula on an emergency basis. And yet we're paying an exorbitant sum of money for that. So, but that's
Until the transmission projects get built out. So that.
yeah,
the
which
plant
they're
can-
projecting. They're using 4.5 years. And I gotta tell you, I've never seen an extension cord put up on poles in 4.5 years in my 30 years. You want to talk about it being a controversial. So,
talking about revenues, I've been pushing, you dug it up. And GHD dug it up. That we're grossly under billing impact fees.
Yeah.
I was hoping we could get it on this agenda actually, but I think immediately we should raise them 10 or 15% to get them anywhere near and then have a study done to get them where they should be, because I know the development's slowing down, but there's a lot of development happening, potential development happening still, that we're just losing money every day.
yeah, and not only that, we're losing money and we're getting to the point where we're gonna need to start building out infrastructure to support the growth, whether it's well field, wastewater treatment plant, or the electrical system. I mean, it's across everything. So
Russ, you want to make a motion? You want to make a motion?
I guess the get to it.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So
I
we-
will,
we-
I will make a suggestion that it's on next.
Yeah,
month.
let's do that.
Well, you get paid the big bucks.
That's right.
And then the last two things that I wanted to go over, line 26, grant revenue, I had to do an adjustment. I was putting the head work payments into grant revenue, but it's actually a draw on our loan. So it actually needs to go into our payables as a liability, not a revenue. And our change in market value is $153,000 loss for this month. And if you look
next
at
month.
if you look at the year to date, it's pretty much the same things as monthly, except for the loss is actually $640,000 And I actually didn't change that from the month. It says 153 for your notes, so that's wrong. But it's 640,000.
So Kim, I have a question on, I'm actually looking at the year-to-date one, but the change is significant in the non-operating revenues and expenses. And it's why is that so drastic? And
So
it was also in this months as well, but
For interest income, we're doing better than we predicted we will be doing.
yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Mhm.
Interest expense, we are right on. Impact fees, we are below, like I said, from the monthly, that would be what I started budgeting to start increasing this month is not increasing as quickly as I thought it would. The sale of assets isn't affecting anything. The grant revenue is the big hit for the adjustment that I just did for $64,000. And then the change in market value is the 640,000.
So I'm also looking at it from the standpoint of this year versus last year.
Mhm.
And that makes it, well,
Yeah, so compared to last year, we're still making better money on our interest. Our interest expense, which is our loan obligation, is higher because of Jones Farm, and we just made that was in September, you won't see this one, but for Jones Farm is in there now. Our impact fees are higher. Our grant revenue is a little higher too, but then to see the delta between making 263,000 last year compared to losing 640.
Is the grant revenue inclusive of the money that the city council
We
provides?
haven't received that yet. I haven't received it.
Okay.
But it would go in
Do we
there.
know when that,
Should we cover, because apparently, I don't know if anybody wants to come in, but they're gonna send out a grant awardee agreement. No?
No,
Okay. Yeah,
we're waiting.
okay.
And
Here's
just
the
so
door.
everybody-
Yeah, she is.
the change.
We gotta get you a seat here.
Is this part of your steps?
It
Yeah.
actually is today.
Fix it.
Actually, I'm going to be leaving the building and listening on the road in a little bit, but so we went over all of the ARPA funding the other day and what we need to do to be able to get the money out the door. And we are going to be developing grant agreements for each of the recipients so that it's clear what the requirements are and that everybody's on the same page so that if the federal government comes back to audit the funds, that we have all the paperwork in place. So that's where we are. We just met about that yesterday. So
Do you have a time frame on?
we're hoping to get it done within the next month. So
Yeah.
and if
'cause
they have expenses that are already ARPA eligible, could they
It-
submit? for
we can,
those?
yeah, we can reimburse anything that's already been expended, we can reimburse. But if we're fronting the money, we want to have that agreement in place first.
Yeah, and where we're at is that we have several major projects and we just need to decide which
Which
ones
one?
we're gonna allocate the ARPA funds to. So that's why, from a timing perspective, it's critical. This way, whether we go out and borrow money, take it out of our cash reserves, or whether we use ARPA money, we need to be able to make that decision.
I mean, you'll have the money. Again, I expect to have agreements to review by the end of the month, next month. By the end of next month, if not before that. And then
But that can all be done administratively, right? This one,
That's all-
council is done. what
right, it's
we
all
need to do.
administrative because council's already approved allocating the funds. We just want to make sure that we have all the i's dotted and t's crossed so that if the federal government comes and says, what types of controls did you have in place, that we have controls in place. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the financials?
Nope.
Yeah, moving on, Inframark report.
They're gonna approve the financial.
Yeah, it's technically, we need a motion. to
Oh, I'm sorry.
accept the
The
report.
treasurer's report.
Yes, this is, we pulled it. You have a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You technically accept the report. You don't approve the report. Let the record reflect.
It's like Alex Trebek. Sorry.
Everybody needs an Alex Trebek.
Okay. Moving on to the Inframark report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so starting out with the membrane system, completed deragging of train 3 in late August. So all 4 trains have been completed for the year. We did have a BFD fail for train 2 permeate pump. We were able to source a new VFD and have it installed in a couple days. Austin approved the expense. Any questions on the membranes?
Nope.
All right, dropping down to pump stations up.
Can I, under the executive summary, the oxidation that she's
Yeah.
showing is green, and we do have an issue with that,
Okay,
with that crack. We should probably,
Well, actually, there's
Slide.
there's 2 cracks.
2 cracks.
I'll amend that for next.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, so
Thank
if
you.
we're staying up in that part there.
Yeah.
Just for the rest of the board, you could talk a little about the deragging of train 3, which you found. I'm sure.
Sure. The deragging of train 3 continued to show significant improvement. There was only about 4 inches of debris up top, which is indicative of what we also saw in train 2. So the screening is definitely much improved, and we anticipate continued improvement once the headworks final equipment is installed.
Okay. And under the 3rd bullet, an unusual configuration exists to supply single-phase power to the station for pump station 17. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Pump Station 17 utilizes some antiquated technology. There are some capacitors, some run capacitors and starters, which once the clogging affects the pump's ability to run, it causes those components to explode, and also has continued to damage the windings which drive the pump. So we've had to replace that pump every time it's gotten significantly clogged. It's caused significant damage.
And then just as a general note, Richard, we know you're leaving. Really want to thank you for everything you've done. You've been a phenomenal asset. I personally, and I think speaking for the rest of the board, really appreciate your open, honest communication and your dedication to the plant. So we wish you best with all your future endeavors, and just wanted to really say thank you.
Good point.
Thank you.
We would change personnel from green to red just because, even though you have a green shirt on.
Thanks, Richard.
Wow.
Continuing with pump stations, pump station 3 bypass valves and fittings that's been completed. So we have the ability to bypass pump from pump station 3. So appreciate everything that BPW did to make that happen. Pump station 16 has been having some issues. Rich, you want to talk about that?
Sure. We had a pump failure at station 16, and we found that is wound up being troublesome due to again some of the antiquated electrical systems there. We sent it out for emergency repair, but due to some of the supply issues and the age of the pump, there's some trouble getting parts to rebuild that in time. In a timely manner. So they're talking about possibly 7 to 8 weeks in order to possibly get parts, and potentially even longer for a new pump. Hills is in the process of trying to get us a new replacement. I actually just received an email from Flight. I've been in contact with Flight. I've also been in contact with Grunderfoss, which is going into the one lift stations, trying to find a suitable replacement of new due to those issues to upgrade the facility as best we can, and at least a temporary. So, and awaiting some other electrical quotes, which should be in either tonight or tomorrow, as far as making some changes to handle that situation.
And as we were going through everything, we also were putting a bypass in there as well, which it was
Oh, good.
a favorable price to put it in.
It should be in place before the rain starts.
And
really?
yeah, the reason for that was because with the impending rain, with one pump being there, we were very cautious of what we were going to do. We had even talked about trying to take a pump that was existing in inventory and try and modifying it so that it would fit the rail system and fit the fit down an actual wet well. But we also, with Rich's help, tried to identify if we could put a bypass in place, how it would happen. Ended up figuring it out, and it just adds another station that now has a bypass that didn't before.
Mike?
That's all I have. Anybody have any
Anything
questions?
concerns about the incoming storm that are we prepared for it?
I mean, it's mostly rain. I mean, we have, topping off the fuel, the bypass is ready. So,
Okay.
just,
Empty and
and
drying
Into the
bed.
drying bed, yeah.
Under the maintenance and repair activities, it says sealed cracks in sodium hypochlorite feed pump. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Again, due to some of the age, sodium hypochlorite had weakened the plastic material that is making up the pump housing. So we tried to seal it temporarily. They've actually, we just received the new pumps and they were installed earlier this week. So.
Okay, great. That's what,
Just as a kind of a prelude, since Richard's here, I don't want to keep him all night, but the generator, just adding in there. So I know we have this on the agenda for later, but since Richard's here, he was there with Dolphin. They took a look, and it seems as if the temporary generator, which is in for discussion this month, it was last month, and we did a little bit more investigating, seems to fit or would fit for most of our smaller pump stations as well.
Yeah,
Did I miss anything?
there were additional hookups that I was not aware of upon initial conversation. So it's able to do everything from a 110 outlet up to supporting the majority of the load at Station 4.
any other questions for everyone?
No?
Thank you very much.
all right, thanks a lot, sir.
Mayor, talking about the storm.
Thanks, Mike. We'll see you
I
guys.
was talking to Austin previously. With discussions with Ann Ray, if she's still listening. When a storm like this is coming, that the city would clean the streets, sweep the streets.
Yeah.
We would check the catch basins to make sure everything's open and
Yeah, I don't know if she can confirm whether Rodney's gone around with the street sweeper or not. Yeah. Let me do that.
We just got an update from Joe Thomas too. Down in Salisbury, they're looking at 4 to 6 inches of rain. Norfolk 6 to 8. So as you come up the peninsula, Cambridge 3 to 4. So if you fill in the gap.
We can, this is Anne Marie. We can have a meeting with our staff in the morning so that we can make sure that everybody's prepared for the pre-storm things to make sure that we do clear what we need to clear.
Yeah, that would be great. I think the worst of the leaves are over, but hopefully, I mean, there's still some around, so.
Yeah, a lot of times it's trash too.
Okay. President's report. I think Austin's probably going to cover most of this. Yeah, I know he's got BB on the agenda on the Suez visit.
You can take some of it if you want to.
Well, Suez came up for their yearly tour and review of the wastewater treatment plant. And they made one minor change to the control system while they were here. And then we're gonna look at an additional one. They're mostly around improving efficiency of the plant and just adjustments. They found nothing outstanding really at the plant. And we're pleased with actually the condition of the membranes. So we met with BB Hospital last Friday.
2 Fridays ago.
Time flies. It was Robin, Austin and I, and BB had a cast of thousands. I mean, there were like 6 or 7 people from BB, including the head of facilities, the chief plumbing person, and they walked us through their facilities, and we gave them a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, which they were greatly appreciative of. They are very sensitive and we're very open in sharing the problems they're having. And because they're seeing it in their piping systems before it even gets to us. And, you know, as they said, the problem is that it's night shift janitorial, it's, you know, and even though we're doing training and they've started to do training, you know, time will tell, but they're continuing to monitor it. And they also talked to us about some potential ways that we might be able to cooperate with each other to make things better on the wastewater side. So I think it was a phenomenal meeting, and you know, the right people were there.
Good.
So we already talked about the DMAC and the NRG, and then the GHD study we talked on briefly. So moving on to the general manager. report.
Tom and Austin and Robin, the battery, how's that going? I see that on your list of contacts. Is that moving forward?
Wasn't that before our last meeting? Anyway,
No, I think it was actually the week of Labor Day.
okay, so we had a meeting with DeLorean, who was one of the
I
battery.
think you did report on that, come to think of it. Maybe it was just a conversation we had. I don't know. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
So we met with DeLorean, who was one of the vendors, and they approached us about having the conversation, given what's changed with the IRA and the other funding from the government. And we've been approached by several of the other battery vendors. DMAC is also talking with battery vendors now. Looks like from a financial perspective, the rules have not been written yet. The legislation passed, but the regulations are not in place yet. So a lot of people are still looking for the details of how this is going to go forward. But there is a lot more potential for the battery market. However, or not however, one of the things we have to consider is, you know, originally we went out, we were looking at both from a reliability perspective and a peak shaving. And, you know, intertwining those two is probably not the optimum solution. So, you know, if we want to go after peak shaving, that's would be one option versus reliability, because reliability with the current technology, you really can't build batteries large enough to give us the resiliency that we're
I see
looking
what you're.
for.
Well, when we
trying to
started
get
this, I think it was
reliability.
primarily peak shaving.
Right,
That's-
it was, but then we looked at, you know, being
Yeah.
able to provide
So you
backup
think we
power.
should go back to peak shaving? Because that seemed like the biggest return for a buck.
Yes, and there are potentially other options under the IRA and these for resiliency. So, you know, we'll continue to look at that and see what options we have.
But when you say reliability, are you saying that reliability, if in case you had a total shutdown and
Yeah, and I-
kick it over to the battery, I mean, or?
Yeah, just so there's no misunderstanding, our reliability index is actually very high. It's storm resiliency, or not
I-
only storm,
Mhm.
it's losing the transmission line coming into town.
Yeah, right, okay.
Our distribution reliability is actually very, very high.
Is this the same DeLorean of the failed Irish?
No.
Cool cars.
Yeah, we're great cars.
I was gonna say, talk
Well,
about
So
reliability.
you can buy a Tesla car and a Tesla Powerwall. You can buy a DeLorean car and a DeLorean Powerwall. So, no, and they don't make their own batteries. DeLorean is merely an.
So you're talking about an IRA bill there too with the DeLorean company. Might be
Yes.
Something different, some other IRA. Yeah.
That was, yes,
So the battery would not be a shared benefit across everybody, it would just be our benefit.
No, shared.
well, and it also all depends upon, one of the options is to have DMAC own the battery. And then DMAC control it, or we would own it. But then it still would be a shared congestion charge, but prorated.
Across everybody.
Yeah, but remember, congestion charges are dependent upon your point of access to the grid. So if you're up north, you don't get hit with the same congestion charges that we do.
Just curious about the math, that's all.
Yes. Mike will comment on the math. Sorry.
Not that I want to be
Okay.
a free rider, but
So now in the general manager's report. Okay.
So again, projects just continue to go on. Still wrapping up Politown Road and Savannah Road. It's just launched this items again. Kimberly and I did attend the APPA conference. There were a lot of things. We tried to tackle them kind of in separate paths so that we would get the most meaningful information from it. Key takeaways, and you can add it if you want. Power supply cost is seeing it across the board. I mean, there is not anybody across the United States and beyond that's dealing with it. You just saw what happened overseas with the two gas pipelines. All of that plays into each other. It doesn't necessarily affect us, but again, the power supply across the country with the electrification that's coming down the pike, the IRA is trying to add some subsidy there to kind of prep for that. But it was unique that they led into a big push is for time of use rates. So a lot of different utility companies are putting forth programs that are voluntary, but they're trying to incentivize customers to take advantage of time of use. And there's a big education piece that comes with it. Because it is a voluntary program for most people, trying to understand that, yes, in certain times it might be more expensive and certain times it may not be as expensive, and trying to educate how they can change, certain times that they maybe, for example, charge their car, or certain times that their AC runs or setting it at a different temperature. It was a very interesting kind of landscape that's coming forth on the electric side, knowing that power supply costs are going up, which is being passed on to customers as well. Supply chain, huge discussion, obviously, and it's only going to get it's going to become very interesting to see what happens with people that have allocated transformers, just using Delaware Electric Co-op as an example, and us as an example, DP&L, other munis across the state and across the country. They are predicting that it's not going to get any worse because these storms are systematically happening throughout the year, whether it be a nor'easter, whether it be a hurricane, the straight line winds out in the west, and wildfires. And then that leads into one of the really unique pieces is that utility companies are just starting to peel back the layers of the onion into insurance policies that help cover that risk. Big storms. One of the new items is actually called parametric insurance. And I've actually reached out to our insurance company to kind of get a better understanding because it's very new. It's not something that's existed. It's supposed to be put in place as like an agreeable a very quick reimbursement. If something were to happen, if a claim happened, you could get reimbursed 15 to 30 days as a cash out. But I don't know I don't know how those policies are written. I don't know what's entailed with them. I don't know what the premium is. So those are what I'm trying to unpack to get a better understanding of. I think a lot of people are doing it to hedge risk, like what's in Florida. So we're starting to kind of dig into that. And then we also talked in the ever-changing market with inflation, trying to retain employees, keep employees, and basically we're all up against the same door, which is kind of that cooperative versus IOU versus public power, and what we can provide versus what IOUs and co-ops can provide, because there is in the data supports a delta between a public utility and a cooperative or an IOU as far as what the compensation package looks like. So they were talking about unique ways to incentivize employees through insurance offerings, through various incentives, et cetera. So this is a lot. Did I miss anything?
A lot of classes that I took were more zoned in accounting for GASB 62 and 87 about regulatory accounting and leases, which I am very interested in regulatory accounting. So I do want to work with the auditor and get some options for that. 87 is just the leases that are in play of reporting it differently than how it has been reported. The small utility roundtable I found the most interesting. PCAs are a hot topic. There's a lot of small utilities that don't even have a PCA. And just some of the stuff that they were talking about, I felt so much better about our utility of their problems. Grants came up that they've never seen funding like this before, and they've never written grants for federal grants like this. And there's only one that has went after grants that has an actual grant writer. And she said that it's pretty straightforward. They tell them what they're looking for. They start looking at the options and like a percentage of possibilities that you'll get it, to see if it's even worth spending our money for them to write up.
What kind of grants were they?
For
Was it with any particular type that?
like the infrastructure grants and stuff that.
Hardening, mitigation, stuff like that.
Yes, so everyone's using the clean water and drinking water SRF funds, but there was only one utility that actually did go through grants, and they said they use a grant writer. Everyone else has no idea how to do grants. So I was kind of hoping I would get more information on that, but
Could you talk about that at our mitigation meeting?
Mhm.
What you learned? Because I think it'd be interesting to the committee.
The University of Delaware is actually offering something to municipalities as well, and you could tap into it as well, where they're basically offering that extension to both a search for applicable grants, but then also assistance with the grant application, the grant writing itself. So that's done through the IPA.
See that?
and I did take a class with Dawn, and I got some breakdowns of how she sets up cash reserves and in lieu of franchise fees. So I want to go back and look at our numbers to see how that's broken down, what percentages, if it still falls under her.
And I think one of the items, the electric rate increases. I mean, there are utilities throughout the country that are applying for 20% rate increases up to. And several of them have actually already been granted. And it's all based upon external costs. And I think we really need to get our ratepayers aware of what's going on so that we're being transparent. And we're doing whatever we can to mitigate. But, this is a strange time we're in, and so much is outside of everyone's control, and so much can change very, very quickly. So, people need to be, people need to understand that this is outside to a large extent of our control, and be aware of it.
To kind of play off and go into the next topic. So Donovan Smith, I know there's been a lot of questions on the schedule for that. So pre-bid meeting is set up for October 13th. We're going to advertise previous to that. And actually the advertisement went out today. And then we are going to do a bid opening tentatively on October 27th. So those are the two key dates as far as meetings go for pre-bid meeting and actually opening the bids, which will be on the 27th. Hoping for a good turnout for contractors. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. We have hydrant flushing, which is scheduled for 11/8 and 11/9. We'll be sending a postcard out to everybody, just letting them know it's our semi-annual hydrant flushing.
Is that later than normal? Because I see in our,
We time it with the
Schedule.
school district. That's our biggest thing. And the school district's off that entire week.
okay.
I think Tom stole the show on the other pieces. We were scheduled to meet with DMEC members and DP&L to continue our relationship with them. That was actually canceled. So we received notification today that was canceled and that will be postponed to a later date. And then the last piece that I had before I turn it over, two things. So Efficiency Smart. So we have a contract with Efficiency Smart and that is set to expire, but obviously we've had with the COVID era and everything. So Scott Lynch is actually going to be coming back in October to give a presentation just as a kind of a continuation of that program.
That cost, is that the one we paid $250,000 to participate in?
It's built right into our rates.
I know,
DMEC.
I know, but I mean, they kind of, we weren't really happy with that.
Yeah, through
And
all
they
members.
kind of put it in before we knew it, and we were paying this. I mean, that's something we should talk about. Is what do we get back from that? What do we see?
That's what we're going to see. We're going to get
Yeah,
that.
that
We're
was
going to get
really,
that data.
really, well,
Good question.
And then my last statement is I just want to throw out there, our thoughts and prayers to go out to Florida. They're in a very tough spot right now. I mean, it's basically a category 5. I know down in Cape Corals, that storm surge at 18 feet is absolutely insanity. So if we can help, we'll help the best we can. I know we're a part of DMEC, APPA. So we'll just keep monitoring and see what we can. Josh, you want to go on yours?
Thank you. I'll start with my security report. I'm going to change it up a little bit from what I usually do. I am going to start beginning next board meeting, handing out something a little bit more digestible. I'm going to present a graph. I was going to try and get it to you today, but unfortunately I just couldn't get it to you in time. I didn't want to rush through something. I wanted to be very presentable. So I'm just going to read off of this one this time, but next time you'll have something a little bit, something in front of you. The good news is that across the board, we've seen the numbers much more acceptable. Last month, we saw some pretty significant increases, and now we are back down into the at least the double digits. As opposed to some of the triple digits that we were seeing last
why
month.
don't you be more clear on what you're talking about? Because
So last month we were seeing our wastewater plant had 2,089 intrusion detections. And then our main firewall had 781. This is substantially higher than we're usually used to seeing. I'm trying to show trends. Typically we're in the lower triple figures with our intrusion detection. The last 30 days, we're down into the double digits. So we're seeing a much more reduction in our detections. And the good news is that we're stopping them. I know last month there was a statement made about the number that I presented last month could have been from an audit that we're currently having. I did confirm that is not the case. Those were confirmed detections, so that we did stop. Moving on to the, we did go ahead, and a little bit of good news, we did get our .gov approved. And we are working with the web hosting company. I have the email pretty much nailed down. We are working with the web hosting company to work with a rollout, because if we just switch the domain, we could lose our search engine optimization or SEO. And I don't want to lose that for our website. So in order to rank high on Google, I'm going to work with them to make sure that we have a rollout. Hopefully, we should be looking at tentatively a rollout at the beginning of the year. I think that's a nice spot. But again, this is dependent on their advisement. We did go ahead and we made some improvements in the upstairs conference room. We did upgrade the audio. We've been struggling with some of the equipment up there, and we did just finalize that equipment last couple of days. So hopefully we should see improvement in the quality of the meetings upstairs. We've also been working with the Lewes Fire Department. They did request some GIS data regarding the fire hydrants. That data was then turned over to not just the fire department, but also to the Sussex County Dispatch, I believe it is. They're working on making sure that the fire hydrants that they have are accurate with ours. Continued with a regular patching, operating systems, servers, etc. We have an ongoing cyber audit, as I mentioned previously. As of they're coming to the conclusion of this report, and they're not reporting any surprises. So I think we're going to have a pretty acceptable audit. In 2019, we had a data breach. And this month, the FBI finally closed the case. They also returned all the assets that were submitted to them for evidence, and we are retaining that information and that sealed evidence for as long as Austin wants. But I'm not going to break the seal on it.
Well, on that point, is there a required retention period?
At this,
If I keep it sealed, then I really don't need to know.
No, I mean, is
I don't
there
know.
legally a required period that we have to retain it?
the FBI didn't give me any indication that I needed to retain that information as sealed data. If it was, then they would have
Maybe the
retained that.
information is about you.
Maybe it's about you.
It's about us that.
The data is sensitive, and it until otherwise directed, I'm gonna keep it sealed at
Okay.
this point. I think that's the safest bet for everyone.
Unless you want it unsealed, then hold unseal it.
And if the board
No, I
wants
was
so, then
wondering
I
if we
will
should
be
be-
happy to do so, but it'll
I
be,
was wondering if we should dispose of it, appropriately. Yeah.
typically I like to hold stuff for a minimum of 7 years, 10 years. There is that does pertain to financial data. So I will kind of lean a little bit towards that 7 to 10 year mark. The FBI already has the information copied, I'm sure, and they have it in their records as well. So moving on, if there's no further questions, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. A little bit lighter note, we are moving forward with our FirstNet AT&T switchover. We are looking at substantial savings, and I mean substantial savings. We are looking to replace all of our mobile assets for a fraction of the price because of all of the credits, incentives, and savings. Typically, that switchover is about in the past, we're right around $18,000. Now we're looking at probably $3,000 in costs. So with all of the credits, so we're really looking forward to that. In addition to that, the month-to-month price is going to be about the same. However, we are being offered a lot more services that we don't have where we're currently, with Verizon where we're at right now. So a lot of features that, such as the mobile units. If we have, a hurricane and it happens to take down the tower, we can request a mobile unit, and then they can deploy, a new antenna, a mobile antenna, so that way we can get our services back up and running. Not just us, but that would also help any other AT&T customer. We're also in that we also we had we had a prior vendor that was trying to acquire sat phones for us, and we've been on a waiting list for a very long time. FirstNet has those assets available, and we have went ahead and moved forward with acquiring that. So we are looking to receive those assets now. I did within the next few days, hopefully. We've been on a waiting list since
April.
at least April. And we are now able to have that. I did confirm with that company, that vendor, they still have not, they still don't have access to this, those units. So it's nice to actually have a sat phone available. In correlation with the sat phones, we'll also have the ability to request these mobile units, which are also satellite backboned. So therefore, we'll only need to use satellite phones if we do need to, in the case of emergency, for a very short period of time in order to get other temporary services provided by AT&T. And that's just to scratch the surface of what we're getting. So as far as emergency response, I can see that there's going to be a lot of positive move in the right direction, of which this board is
Would
and
it be
Austin
helpful
has
if the
directed.
city had the same technology that we did, or does it not matter?
I'll be happy to share with them anything that I find. It's again, I didn't see any additional month-to-month savings because it is still basically the same service on a normal basis. However, it really shines in the emergency response world. And I'll be happy to have a conversation with you and show you, and just discuss with you any questions or concerns that you guys have before you even talk to a salesperson.
And the trade-in of assets, because what we
Yeah.
do is we try and do cell phones 2 years, iPads 3 to 5. And so
Mhm.
the credit that we're receiving versus what we're buying them for is insanity,
Yeah, we're
plain as
getting-
day.
we're getting very, very large credits. And
And these phones are over 2 years old. So we're trading in phones that are 2 years old to get new phones for almost nearly a 1-to-1.
yeah, it is a very, very close wash. With the cell phones especially, there's actually a surplus on the credit, but we're utilizing a lot of the surplus of that to replace a lot of the tablets where there isn't as many credits. So across the board, every mobile device is getting replaced. And with that, we're going to spread that savings across all of those assets and therefore essentially resetting the depreciation clock. And I know that Kim is really happy that I'm not spending as much money on this whole process, right?
So
There she
You
is.
just say it's AT&T you're going with?
Right, so they also are, we did test them. We tested out all the services that they had prior. They did send us test phones, really. And then we tested out the services, rode around. I went all the way into
Louis?
no. That where I should have went.
State Park.
Thank you, State Park, where everybody knows that there's no service. And it still had a little bit of trouble, but I had service where I don't with my Verizon. So I think that we're moving in the right direction, but I'm almost done, I promise. On the 23rd, I did go to with Mike, we did go to the DMAC IT roundtable. We did make some contacts with the CISA representative there and also talk about grants. There's a lot of grants coming up and I'm working towards having communications with them and finding out which grants that we might be able to leverage to help us. We also covered human risks. There's basically how we could essentially see who would grab a thumb drive and throw it into a computer without thinking about what it is. A lot of people in that scenario, people will throw a thumb drive into a computer and not realize, oh, well, this doesn't do anything or it's blank, but really there's a program running in the background and they're none the wiser. And we're hoping that we can, we're in a good place where we can defend against that. However, we want to make sure that people don't take that action without asking first. That's what we're looking for. And that's what they covered in the IT roundtable. And then lastly, I was asked to bring this up. I don't typically bring this up. I did complete a certification recently. I completed my CompTIA A+ certification. This is it was pretty good certification for me. And I believe that it's going to bring a lot of benefit to the board and everything that I can offer you.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, thanks for doing that.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. So now we're on to new business. Ring?
You want to start? Either one. No, but I can send it to Josh real quick.
I meant to email that this morning and
No, you're good. I'm
just took a
looking
file.
it up.
So while Austin is doing that, good evening, Ring Marvin Davis, Bonner Fidel. A few months ago, we had sent a request and started actually with the city of Lewes to discuss the possibility of serving what's known as Mitchells Corner. And for those that know where it's at, it's located at the intersection of Gills Neck Road and Kings Highway, adjacent to the Cape Henlopen Medical Center, Lane Builders, Big Oyster Brewery, that area, and the moorings on the backside. That project was approved by County Council in August, I believe. It was maybe even July. I think it was August.
It was August or July.
I think it was July.
Time flies like everything else. And so with that approval, we were able to begin discussion of utilities. Austin and I had a discussion probably several months before then about electric specifically, because we found electric was split zoned across this property, which is one of the topics. And then we also discussed water at the time. And we all thought it was appropriate to hold that conversation till after we went through the county process, just to know if we actually had a viable project, of which we do. So we first requested a meeting with the city of Lewes and discussed with Anne Marie. She has suggested that we come before this body first to determine if the board was even interested in serving the utilities, which would then allow us to go to BPW to see if they would consider waiving some of the requirements. So we're kind of in the chicken and egg situation. Doesn't really matter to me which way we want to go first. So we said, fine, we will come before this body. Requesting, it shows as one action. I'm going to request two separate actions on purpose. And the reason why I say that is we'll discuss the electric portion first, because I think that's the cleaner discussion point. And up on the screen is a map of the Mitchells Corner project. As preliminary approved, and we have many, many more details to go through. And you can see the dashed line kind of about 600 feet plus or minus off of Kings Highway, which is the demarcation line between Lewes PPW and Delaware Co-op as approved through the Public Service Commission. And you can see that line splits roads, houses, and the like, which no one believes is a viable interest to anybody. So the first request we're asking is permission for Austin to discuss with the co-op redistricting, if you will, the line that makes sense for everybody. And at the same time, state your interest in serving this with the electric of a line that's different than what's currently approved by the Public Service Commission. And the reason why that's important is the city of Lewes has recognized that if it's demarked by the Public Service Commission, the board has to serve it whether or not we sign a pre-annexation agreement. But because we want to modify that line, it's not exactly as approved by the Public Service Commission. So we just kind of wanted to include that in that motion so that should this board decide to move forward with the interest of serving it, we could have that conversation with mayor and council of why it's so important that this line needs to change. But yet it's still a requirement of the Public Service Commission to provide electric services. So that's the first question that we're asking. The second question is the board's interest in serving water. The project is, as you all aware, there is water along Kings Highway. You're currently serving the Cape Henlopen Medical Center, which is parcel A in the bottom right of your screen. In doing so, there's an opportunity that could loop through the system, feedback into Bayberry's, which provide the loop system, better water quality. So that is the second request, is if the board would be interested in serving this parcels eventually at the end of the day with water. Those actions would then allow us to go meet with City of Lewes. They would then have to take action. If they decide to take action without a pre-annexation agreement, we could move forward with the water. So there's different things going back and forth. So not everything's a done deal. This is just step one in what I would call the three-step process in determining if the board can and is able to provide utilities to this project. And I think I pretty much covered everything. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions as well as Austin. And I know Ben's here as well, if there's any questions for the three of us.
So I've just to add to the electric piece. So I've already in my mind, I've had a convert, already in my mind, plus with Rhett, we've talked through this. I think I have a very good solution for the electric piece that I don't think will be hard at all. And I think everybody will find that it's the most efficient way to do it. And then Ben, I don't know if you want to discuss the water portion or not. Good.
I take it that elegant solution requires an approval, obviously, to change the lines. correct?
Well, this is the first time I think I'm dealing with a PSE redelineation of a line. I don't know what your thoughts. I don't know if would I present what my idea is.
So I guess just a couple things real quick. So there is a process for it through the PSC and it involves engaging the co-op as you would imagine. So part of your solution is a discussion with co-op, and then there is a process in the PSC on the electric piece. My one question on the water, is there currently a CPCN?
There is not. So the CPCN does not exist. Tidewater is on Gills Neck Road. The city of Lewes, Fort Public Works is on Kings Highway.
And you have a will serve from
I have a will serve from Tidewater to provide water. So one or the other would be the water provider. We just want to come to the board and ask the question. There's benefits all over the place. So that's the question. So whichever path, should this board make a decision, should the city of Lewes make a decision that's viable for everybody, then whichever water provider we choose we would follow the CPCN through the Public Service Commission, we'd follow the normal CPCN process.
So Rain, you're looking for a potential approval from us too, and then how are you gonna make the decision?
So what we're looking for today would be an interest of the Board of Public Works. We would then need to go to City of Lewes requesting a waiver from the pre-annexation agreement. So if they granted the waiver of the pre-annexation agreement, I think my client would lead towards going with the City of Lewes Board of Public Works, but they would have to check rates and how it applies to the different end users and the like. If the city is not willing to waive the pre-annexation agreement, then the choice would be to go with
Sure.
Tidewater. And so that's kind of where we are. So
So it hasn't been decided. I mean, there's nothing that you said, you can say tonight that if we do this, we'll definitely get it.
that's correct. Until this is just step one. Step two is going to mayor and council and seeing what their desire is as far as the pre-annexation agreements. But we were told, I guess, lack of better words, to come before you first, just to gauge the interest of the board before we went to mayor and council.
But you could also have one without the other.
Yeah, we have the electric, like I said, is an easier conversation because you're almost required to by the Public Service Commission. The question is that line doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
The water is a different question. The water, there is a choice in the water. The electric is we're a little more handcuffed on the electric than we are with the water.
And if I can piggyback, just so the request, and I agree, it makes sense to treat them separately. So it's not, you're almost required, you are required for the electric. It's, you have the CPCN and that's in the board's line. So the request as it pertains to electric is let me phrase it this way. The motion would be a motion to approve proceeding with service conditioned on the mayor and city council's consent, as well as conditioned on staff engaging the co-op and proceeding with the PSC as to the line. That's the first piece. The second piece would be a motion to approve staff pursuing a CPCN from the Public Service Commission conditioned on mayor and city council's consent. So the action you're taking is to pursue the CPCN. Once you have the CPCN, then you can provide the service. But you can't pursue the CPCN until mayor and city council offer their consent. The board doesn't weigh in at all on the pre-annexation agreement. It's purely the consent of mayor and city council. So those are the two issues.
On the second piece, should it also be another condition that they decide they actually want service from us? Because the piece was they wanted to know if we could provide service, the city would allow us to provide service without pre-annexation or annexation, and then they would make a decision.
Well, the filing the CPCN is what
Correct.
Yeah,
allows a condition to be
Correct.
confirmed.
That's right. We need to file for the CPCN. We need the property owner to request it. For
Is there
the,
costs associated with that for the BP, would there be a BPW have to pay the existing, like the incumbent, so to speak?
on,
On
On
the
the
water
water,
side, there is no.
Okay,
that's why it makes sense to treat this as two. So on the electric side, you need agreement of both utilities to move that line. And then you present that to the PSC through that process. On the water, nobody has it. So you can apply for it if the property owner supports you.
so is there a fee for the electric, if they were to agree to move the electric, is there?
That's part of the conversation.
Okay.
But how is that typically done? I mean, when this occurs, giving up a CPCN, do you have to compensate? Is that was
That's the
point?
mayor's question.
Yeah,
And
was that the point?
Yeah, that's my
A
question.
few times
I
I've
mean-
done it,
So we have to negotiate with them and
with the co-op, there's a discussion with the co-op. That's right.
a few times I've done it, it's been a amenable process that I haven't seen compensation. I've seen it between Delmarva Power and Delaware Co-op. They kind of say, okay, you're 3/4 of property, it's yours, because they all agree. Having split in different areas doesn't work. So like I said, I'm sure also as a plan, the co-op's gonna say, you know what? Yep, this makes sense to us. Let's do it. I don't recall a lot of times seeing costs change, but not saying it can't happen, but generally they're amenable because both parties are trying to resolve an issue that neither party wants to deal with.
And
Well,
keep it-
Austin, I have a question. Could we do all this?
well.
If we can, I mean,
Express what my thoughts are? Is it for what I think, how the line should be delineated
Well,
or how? I-
emotions are one thing, but I want to know, are we in position to provide these services?
And that's sort of why the council wanted to have you guys take a shout out at first, you know.
Well, Ben, I think will help on the water. I have through talking with Rhett, how I view the easiest way to serve this is.
Okay,
just to clarify, and again, I mean, I think that the point here is, and correct, I mean, those homes don't currently exist.
No.
And that's the whole point. It's a line on a page, but the line on the page doesn't meet the plan. So part of your conversation is where you're going to put infrastructure in order to serve the homes. And I think that that's why it's a discussion as to kind of where that goes. So to Ring's point, I think where you typically find these conversations of moving the line is when you're in this situation of it's both utilities discussing and coming up with the plan that makes the most sense to provide the service. So my recommendation is, because my recommendation is to have the discussion with the co-op before we land on any solution. I think, and again, the motion here is, to the mayor's point, the request is, does the board have capacity to serve, interest to serve? Then the next question is actually going through the process to get the right to serve, and then you get into the engineering of what that looks like. So there are multiple stages here,
Right.
which is why the motion is to support staff engaging to move the line and pursuing with CPCN or with the Public Service Commission on electric, alternatively pursuing the CPCN on the water, conditioned on mayor and city council's
but the
consent.
capacity is first, isn't it?
Right, I think, so I think what Tom's asking is for Austin's
I
opinion
agree.
on whether we have the capability of providing
Yeah.
electricity
The
to the
capacity
property
to
or
provide the
whatever the
service.
lines are.
Correct.
And we could leave it at that and then go into more discussions after the discussions with the co-op.
The short answer is yes. I just have a practical way of serving it that makes. the most
Well, we
sense.
have the capacity to do the water and the electric. Is that what you're saying?
On the electric, and then Ben's gonna
Ben's
talk.
gonna add data.
Well, let's just take with electric. We have the capacity to do the electric. If whatever comes up, is different. But will we have the capacity to
What
do
does
it?
happen if this plan changes in any way?
The plan's the plan. It would just be where that line is drawn.
No, it just shows a lot of houses. I don't know whether it's commercial as well added in there, and whether it gets flipped and there's more commercial and fewer houses.
It's already been approved.
It would have to go back through county council, county
Okay,
council.
I'm just.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
to answer your question, so yeah, could the plan change? Yes, houses could move the like, but as part of the overall process would be continuous discussion and review with Austin and his staff, G&B and their staff, and everybody else. So it'd be a continuous conversation so that the plan would match whatever the final lines are drawn. And that would be all part of the whole process, which is many iterations down, once we get through the first two hurdles of the question of can, willing, and able to serve.
So the magnitude of possible service is not an issue.
You can always build less, right, Ring?
Of course.
So since we have the capacity, I'm ready to, I'll make a motion.
No, let's second.
Okay,
Let's
wait,
get
wait.
the water side.
Okay, if he wants to do electric only, because we do want two different motions on purpose.
I think we have to have two different motions, but I'm gonna make a motion on the electric first. And then I'll wait for you to tell me how to say it.
So the recommended would be a motion to allow staff to engage the co-op with discussions of moving the service line and pursuing that shift with the Public Service Commission, conditioned on receiving the prior consent of mayor and city council.
All right, Tom, word for word, go.
I like
Just
it.
say so moved.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I guess I should have asked whether there was discussion, but I think we had.
And just also just a matter of practice going forward, always call all in favor and then also always call any opposed, just so there's an opportunity.
Okay, now we'll move to water.
Good evening. So a few weeks ago, Austin asked us to look at the capacity for this, adding this development into your system. So in short, based on our calculations and analysis, which basically we looked back at the water allocation projections, the tank capacities, system demands, and looked at the projects on the horizon, like the tower, some well redevelopment that's going to occur. We'd feel comfortable saying the board could accept this development and serve. And I'm happy to go into more
Is
detail. of
it
how we
contingent
got
upon the tower and the well development?
I mean, I think those projects are in the works. I wouldn't say it's necessarily contingent, but it is very important to have those done.
Ring, what's your ETA? If you had to throw out a date wise,
Approval, we're looking probably into 2023 for approval starting in 2024.
1 year, 2 years construction, 18 months.
So longer than that, probably 4 years, depending on the takedown.
You're gonna bring on certain sections on at a time or?
The commercial
First.
building will come on first,
Yeah.
then probably 20, 30 houses first year, and I forget what they're projecting the year after that.
Okay,
Let's say full about 20,
6, 7.
28, somewhere around there.
So I think the part of the discussion was on whether it's contingent upon that or not, is we need to do these other improvements regardless. And this project, the Mitchell Corners, is not a materially significant portion of the BPW water system. So independent of
That's my
whether
question.
we put this,
267.
Less commercial.
40,000 square feet.
So
Yeah,
my question to
from an-
follow up
one
with
second.
what Tom's saying is that capacity.
Right.
And if we need the tower, anyhow, not counting this one, that's one point. If we only need the tower to do this one, then that's a different.
You need the tower is regardless.
Our water
Okay.
for their water, if they go to our region, comes from where?
No, they would go to Tidewater.
Tidewater.
I don't know where that well sits. I think it's,
After they come off the tower there at Home Depot. and
Yeah, they're
Wherever the
right.
well is near there,
off
so.
Plantations Road, I think. Don't quote me on it.
if I remember correctly, it's the same aquifer because when Denrec did their aquifer analysis, that those wells are in.
You're all the same. You, Rehoboth Beach, everyone's hitting that kind of same aquifer.
Are you putting ag wells in, or are you thinking about doing irrigation actually tied into either one of the systems?
If it's city of I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the well rehabilitation and upgrades, that's gotta be done.
Yeah.
We gotta get that done and
Mhm.
quickly. I mean, not tomorrow, but within the year or things like that. The tower, I don't know when we have it. It's about 2 years out.
25, I think.
Yeah.
And then keep in mind, you have the impact fees, you have 300 plus EDUs worth of impact fees. I heard next month the rate may go up a little bit, rate may go up again before then. So there's other costs that would be forthcoming to the board as part of that whole thing as
Right.
that comes along as well. So it's not like it's coming in the system and not paying the impact of the system or everything else. So those fees would be part of the project and coming to BPW in addition to the normal monthly fees for the water and the electric.
Yeah,
And
and
it's sewage as well.
Well, sewage is going to go to Sussex County, but through your agreement with Sussex County, someone's going to back.
Come back to
us.
Which the county will pay.
So I could do, I mean, if capacity was my biggest concern, especially with, you're talking about the tower. But I'm hearing that we have the capacity in the tower and all the rest of it is important for other things as well. So I'll make a motion when you tell me what to
If
do.
we make the motion, just in supporting of what Ring had just said, these other improvements are in the pipeline and we have to do regardless.
Exactly, that's what I meant.
And by getting the impact fees would help us to amortize those costs, which we have to incur anyway.
Right. As I
So-
said, the capacity was my biggest concern and we have it, so. But we have to make a motion that has all that in it.
So the motion here would be a motion to authorize staff to pursue a CPCN for the Mitchells Corner property conditioned on mayor and city council's prior.
Josh, one question though. So when you calculate these capacities, how much does that leave you then? If you have if you have enough for this, how much more?
So. I mean, it's a long answer, I guess, to answer your question, but. Based on the, what we looked at with the water allocation permit, we projected a certain amount of usage each year based on organic growth and committed developments in the city. So. In terms of the water allocation, we want that allocation to be high. Higher than what we would normally see, just to have that additional cushion there.
Are you taking into account all the places that are coming online that will draw water from that area?
Correct.
This is an oddity, just because this was not designated by a CPCN currently. So this is one where the owner has the option to go one way or another.
I understand, but I'm saying if you're taking into consideration every piece of property that it can possibly be built on in this area.
We looked at committed developments that are coming into the city's realm or the BPW's service area. We
Just a
didn't look
list.
at,
I was gonna say Roosevelt Landing, Fisher's Cove, White's Pond, Tower Hill, Lewes Waterfront Preserve, Henlopen Bluff, Donovan Smith.
Gibbs property.
Gibbs.
Call that.
so projected, say 2027 in just additional EDUs is 1,405 based of committed development as of today, or including Mitchell's Corner, if that's approved.
Ben, did you guys account in your calculations for all the property that the BPW currently has a CPCN for?
I would say the answer is no. Because I'm believing that is very consistent with the city municipal boundary as well as the existing developments. I'm not aware of much additional CPCN area that's needing or additional to be developed.
So then that would be a yes, though, just to, so my question
I'm
is.
not sure that was a
is-
yes or a no.
Well, it's unique because the sewer CPCN takes this big swath out the
Right.
old orchard versus the water CPCN, which is not. It's more closely follows the boundary of the municipal boundary.
Yeah, so the question is with the, if we have a water CPCN that is already being served, then that is going to be incorporated in your calculations. The question is what area do we currently have a CPCN for water that isn't currently served? And does that affect your analysis? in
Austin
terms of
can
capacity?
come up with that number. So that's a question for Austin.
Okay,
Say that one more time.
The question that Mike's coming up with is he wasn't sure. He's looking at all of the development that he knows about that's coming. But he's not sure if it includes every parcel of land that we have a CPCN for.
It could be
So
developed.
do we have a CPCN? The question is, do we have a CPCN for any area that hasn't already been included in what he's thinking?
I would have to know what his numbers were to understand what was included and what wasn't, parcel wise. I can't like,
He's doing currently developing the land, not
All
Land.
development
that could
that's
be
in,
developed that
that
hasn't.
we know of.
yeah, it's a. It's a
You don't know off the top of your head?
loaded-
I'm kidding.
Where's one drive?
Yeah, I can't picture the CPC in my head to like be, that quick to know.
Can you pull it up, Josh?
I'm doing it now.
Trying to think where it's at.
I think it's a great
It's in
question.
the shared drive. It's in the shared drive under CPCN maps, CPCN maps.
It's just a matter of how big that CPC is.
Yeah, wow.
okay, let's take a music interlude.
You start singing.
That how I see the room.
What's our combined capacity? Well, do you remember?
See that, Ben? Thank you.
For
Add in Lewes Waterfront Preserve is the only one that would need to be added to this. And Tower Hill.
I can't believe that he wouldn't have included Tower Hill in there.
No, that would be included.
It's in his model, but it's on the map.
Yeah,
Correct. It's not in the map. It's
because again, they
it's in our-
weren't, we actually had to file through the PSC for those.
Just gave me a little notice, I'm not showing on there either, but that's part of the allocation.
Mhm. Because they undeveloped, you have like the Plummer property that sits in the middle in between Kings Highway and Savannah.
Let me ask the question a different way. So in light of seeing this map, Ben, and based on your projections, do you have any concerns as to capacity? If based on the committed development and the CPCNs?
No. Just to also.
What are you judging that off of?
Just to add that we did account for 0.9% annual growth of the system in addition to the committed development in our allocation permitting. So that adds 500 EDUs over the course of, well, sorry, in the 200 EDUs in the same time frame that the committed developments hit the 1405.
So
So
what's the capacity of our water plant?
So the capacity of your water plant right now is 2.88 MGD based on a 1.8 peaking factor
That's
for
the,
daily flow.
that's the plant,
That's
not the
plant.
wells, just
That's
the plant.
No. But the wells are about 4,000 gallons per minute combined.
With no roughness factor in the pipe, yeah. But
Correct.
if
So
it
that's
had-
about 6 million gallons
Yeah,
per day.
your per the plant's design, the peak hourly flow is, I think it's a little bit over 6 million gallons per day, which is roughly 4,000 gallons per hour, yes.
So that's the kind of figures we're dealing with.
So when you,
Peaks right now are about 1.5 million, the biggest, the highest peak we've had.
This summer, we saw 2.1, I think one time, 2.1 million gallons.
So that was short-term
Yeah.
peak.
Yeah, usually in the summertime, minus the leak that occurred last summer, we sit around 1.75, 1.8. And then in the winter, it drops off. You're at 1.1 to 1.3.
So the tank would be very valuable to have.
We got how many wells? 6?
5.
5. How close are they together?
Roughly 400 feet,
400 feet.
450 feet.
Well, each one.
Yeah.
They're spread over 1,700
Yeah, the
feet.
difference between both, 1,700 feet roughly. That's why I said what Ring presented was basically, are we willing, is the board willing to serve it? He has the will serve from Tidewater also. So this is basically just going in and comparing 1-to-1, and his client's going to make the best decision for him. Or them.
And we should make the best decision for us.
Correct.
So
So the first decision is whether we have the capacity. Yes,
I think we do.
so that was
Talking
my
about
biggest
water
question.
and the word think, and no offense. No offense at all.
No.
Because those wells are close together. And there's all getting sucked into one direction. I'm not in favor of this. I'm in favor of the other. I'm not in favor of the water.
Well, I would say, going back to what I said earlier, we've got to do water tank, we've got to do something with the well field. We have other system improvements we have to make.
Mhm.
This will help to amortize those costs, which are totally are not independent, but are not based upon Mitchell Corner individually. So from all the numbers I've seen going through, the improvements we need to make to our system for the ratepayers of the BPW need to be made. And this isn't going to make a material significant difference.
And we can agree to disagree.
That's
That's
fine.
kind of, I guess we could have, I don't know if you've seen any hydrogeological work on about the capacity of that aquifer that I know it's a big aquifer and has a lot of water,
It is, yes.
but from what I know, and that's not my major thing, but there's a lot of water down there and it's a huge aquifer going good way up the state.
And remember, we did pay the DENREC or agree to split the cost with DENREC for an aquifer study for the well field.
If that study was in, I may vote different.
You got about 2 years for that.
I understand. The fact that we even wanted the study done says something.
Well, the capacity question is the biggest one, and I think I'm comfortable with the fact that we have it. So I'll make a motion to,
So the motion, if you are willing to make the motion, would be to authorize staff to proceed with applying for a CPCN for water for the Mitchells Corner property, conditioned on mayor and city council offering their prior consent.
and does that commit the BPW to service, should the choice be, yes, I want BPW to,
Yes, so if you apply for the
They're linked.
CPCN and the PSC gives the CPCN, and part of that is saying we are ready, willing, and able to serve.
So, but quick question, no, but if they also get an application in from Tidewater, then there's two.
It probably will. I mean, that's good business.
No,
They already have their own ability to serve in Tidewater.
no, let's just,
There's only be one CPCN.
correct.
And so we, Mitchells Corner, will be the applicant. We either will apply to BPW or we will apply to Tidewater. You can only have one CPCN on the property.
Okay.
Electric is the wild card. We have no idea how that ever happened, but it did.
So,
Okay,
so I'll piggyback off of that. The electric was set by the map of the PSC back in the early 90s, I think. But the CPCN, a requirement to get a CPCN is the property owner must say, I want
Okay,
this.
so now I understand. So
So-
if we apply, say, we will apply for a CPCN, then the property owner has to come back to us and say, we want you to.
That's right. So
Yeah.
effectively what's happening is your motion of authorizing staff to go forward, staff can only go forward if the property owner signs the
I understand.
application.
Now I'm
That's
with
right.
you 100%. So that's a good motion. I'll take it. I agree.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a second,
Second.
on the question. So one thing I do want to say is the well study that we requested was not about capacity. It was about wellhead protection area, which was completely independent of the capacity of the aquifer. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So we have 4 ayes and 1 opposed. Motion carries.
And just to, for the sake of the board and for the sake of Ring, my recommendation would be that following the conversations with the co-op, when there is agreement on where the line is before the application to PSC, come back to the board and present where the line is in the arrangement. And then belts and suspenders, you can verify. Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ring.
Okay. Household Hazardous Waste Day.
So this is our semi-annual event that we team up with the Lewes PD. It's a national event. So each one of the municipalities really takes place in this. So what we do is we have our household hazardous waste take back and electronics take back, and then the drugs are collected by the Lewes PD. So this is just bringing it up, kind of codifying it. The date is going to be October 29th of 2022 from 10 to 2. Encourage anybody to come out, stop by. Board members, we usually provide coffee, donuts, lunch. So
Yeah, it's really enjoyable
Cold
because
hypertension medicine.
we get so many nice comments from the people. They're so thankful for that, for all of those pickups, because for years they didn't know what to do with the stuff.
And we're still getting a pretty good turnout, or a very good turnout.
Yeah.
It always amazes me what comes out of the basements.
But it's a very positive thing for the BPW public.
The one thing that has been impressive is that the amount of oil-based paints in that has really gone downhill,
Yeah.
or down, I should say. But some of the other stuff is just amazing. I think it was a record year for the police department and drug take back this year or this spring.
We got it done, right?
2 guns. Okay.
I don't think that needs a vote. I think that was just an item.
That's just the information.
I don't think ask you on that, because I know that one of the issues we have still is the commingling with the recycling. One of the things that people put in there is batteries, and they're not supposed to.
And we collect.
Oh, no.
You might be you're amenable to, you collect batteries too.
Yeah,
So we should promote that.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have.
So people could save the batteries and then have.
We get hundreds of batteries, especially. Yeah. But we'll take big batteries too,
But we have a separate collection place for them.
Okay,
That's safe.
next one is open forum, general discussion on 50/50 cost sharing of a planning grant with the city for Cedar Avenue.
So this is just a refresher. So the past two city and BPW joint meetings, the first meeting we had brought up that we were talking about our big Cedar Avenue water and sewer project that we were discussing. And one of the items was the stormwater piece. And it's kind of a joint situation between the city and the Board of Public Works because the city covers all of the above ground infrastructure, curbs, gutter, the roads itself, minus having Delta as a player there as well. And then we handled the underground infrastructure. And with Cedar being an area where not a lot of infrastructure exists, we wanted to be ahead of it. This is a 50/50 matching planning grant. So what it is for the total amount, the city would get billed 50 because they're the person that the grant's actually under, and then we would contribute 50% of the 50%, if that makes sense. So this is just codifying, what the board's willing to do, what the board's going to partner with the city on for this study.
So we're getting 50% of 50%.
We're paying 50% and 50%.
And that would be how much?
17,500, I believe.
The right answer was 25%.
25%.
Oh, right. I gave you the.
I knew that. I know you're being set up.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? Open forum, general discussion on.
think we need
Motion to approve.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Open forum, general discussion on the city's capital or appointment and board member to the city's capital budget, capital projects committee.
So I think we had this discussion at the last joint meeting. So currently I attend all of the capital projects committee meetings. But I think there was a discussion of actually having one of the board members sit on it. I believe the recommendation was Richard. So the enthusiasm right there tells him he's ready for the
I
job.
make a motion. I make a motion for Richard to be on our representative on the capital project committee.
Is there a second? Well, first, I guess you should ask, do you agree, sir?
You don't ask the question.
He already raised his hand,
Exactly.
so
Just vote.
since he raised his hand,
I'll
I
make
took
a
that as a yes. I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And you can't oppose yourself.
Thank you, Richard.
No, no opposition. Okay. Pole attachments. Robin, I'm gonna turn this one over to you.
All right, email out, a couple days ago, we received a inquiry from their Lewes New Singular Wireless PC LLC, which is AT&T. They want to install two wireless facilities on two of our poles. One in the area of 2500 Bay Avenue and one in the area of 9 Rhode Island. The installation includes antennas at the top, and then there's a metering box with a meter down about 8 to 14 feet from the ground level. The request also includes removal of the existing poles, because according to their engineers, the poles for the optimal coverage, the poles are too short. They need to be about 3 foot taller.
You just replace the one at 9 Rhode Island?
Yes, there's one replaced there, yeah.
You're gonna replace it again?
This is before. that we
Yeah,
knew this was
yeah.
coming.
Yeah, this happened to be the pole on 9 Rhode Island. The one that's not been replaced. Rhett's looked at this briefly and Rhett didn't want it on the pole, so they had to put it on another pole. Because we had a lot of surface underground stuff on that pole. I sent the representative to pole attachment agreement that we had. They have
responded back with red line version, some comments. Most of their comments are, at this point, they want to extend the time period for billing and
don't see any
removing
red line
stuff
version.
and things like that. And Mike's office has reviewed it. One of the things that was left out.
I don't think it was in the.
Yes, it's an antenna,
It's a
yes.
separate one, okay.
It's a little small antenna that goes, it's gonna sit on top of the pole.
Looks like a top hat.
Is this one of those things that sounds like it's really easy and everybody's gonna say yes and people won't want it?
The city is, again, this is one of these agreements that is the city has to work with it from the planning zoning side, and we have to work on it because he's attaching to one of our poles. So the city's going to have to agree to it.
So we would get approval from you.
I think you host for, because you have to be able to do,
Yeah, we, before the city can move forwards with issuing a permit,
It's your poll.
that pole attachment agreement has to be completed first.
Understood.
Yeah,
But you guys make the decision on whether or not
aesthetically or whatever.
aesthetically
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, we have that on the books.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was several years ago.
Robin worked hard on that already.
And we worked on that part now on this one.
These antennas are not like the antennas for the regular cell phones. They're basically cans, and unless you're looking up at the very top, you don't even notice them.
So Robin, I have a question about what is it?
Yeah.
This antenna is what Tom is talking about. What else has to go on the pole?
We would have to put a meter on that pole. So we, from the BPW side, we would have what we call the make ready charge. That's part of the agreement. That we would have to run an electric meter on that pole so that could be serviced. I mean, so
Yes,
they
but
could-
what does their stuff look like?
And I assume they're gonna pay up all costs, replacement of the pole and everything.
To make.
Yes, that's the make ready part of the agreement. That is in the agreement. It says to be determined. And that's because different projects, are going to cost a little bit more for us to make these poles ready. This is the application that came in through the building side.
So this thing is, their attachment is this thing here, right?
Yeah, their attachment there, we have to put the meter there, and then this is the antenna at the top.
Okay. Well, it doesn't take up the whole thing. That's, I don't know, how big is it relatively? Just it,
Yep.
it's this big. 22 by
Why you want to close to your house?
11 and a half, say
Space on my line.
22 inches by 11 and a half inches. Is that inches or feet?
So they're.
Inches.
Inches. No, that's not bad.
2 feet.
Rhode Island.
Yeah, Okay,
Only option
got
to be able to see it.
What's the radiator?
Rhode
thing?
Island.
I think that's on the inside. I think that's the cover for that.
Okay, and what are they?
I think it's just more details. More details on
it's like the things out in front of your yard, that have a cover
what's
up
that
on
one?
them.
So it's 3 feet higher than most of our.
I think it's.
They want to
just more
replace it and they
general
want,
Of
but
all
it's,
the things that.
the pole needs to be 3 foot higher.
This is
And I
probably
think this
standard
size-
Just to remind everybody, in open session, keep the crosstalk
Yes.
down, because otherwise it's hard to catch the minutes.
Thank you, Mike.
Very hard right now.
I think, show it around and you're sure that this is what the thing is going to look like right here.
This is what they're.
That's it right there. Okay.
And the point we made, we have an ordinance that basically spells out the aesthetics of all these things. So from your perspective, I think it's more of a matter of practicality. Can you do it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's.
The
more
city
for
is
just
taken
like,
care of.
We're okay with them.
It needs to
actually
look
spell-
like X.
The city will say, they don't meet the ordinance,
That's right.
that you can't do it.
It pole is 3 feet higher than our standard poles in that area.
The one that's up there now.
Well, how about the rest of the poles? I mean, can't remember what's there now, even
it's-
though it's a block away.
This is the Verizon. They're actually.
Three.
Wait for the mic.
These are 5G, by the way, right? Yeah.
It was 40.
The
Because otherwise I don't think our ordinance is.
the pole that's at 2500 Bay Avenue. The existing pole height right now is 35 feet, 3 inches. They wanted to go up to the pole to be 38, 6 inches, 38 feet, 6,
How far above that does the
41 total.
41?
How
How,
they antenna?
how high are typically our poles in that area?
I don't have, I mean, the one that they want to replace is 35 feet.
So I would say it's pretty close to 30.
So they're all about that height then. I didn't know that could have been a short
I
pole.
would say, yeah,
And I didn't.
correct. Yeah, that seemed to be when the other one, the one that they want to do on Verizon pole, again, we don't have any
So
say on
about
that,
7 feet above the poles that are there. Is that right?
including the antenna. So it's roughly 3 feet for the antenna, and 3 feet for the additional pole height.
Mayor, I know this is your bailiwick, but does,
And it's my yard.
is it really?
Yeah, 9 Rhode Island.
You're having good.
Yeah, you got a great service.
He probably made the
So the
request.
question is only whether we can accommodate this change in height from a technical basis, not on whether the, pushback, this is
Yeah, I was-
aesthetically
You're right,
unacceptable
you're
or
right.
too high or too low,
Yeah, that's what this.
or it attracts pigeons or.
I guess we always had the option to say no. That you make them put their own poles up. Then it just goes to the city side.
Actually, I think the city ordinance prevents that.
Encourages code, okay. And-
Right.
And I think once you're dealing with FCC, I don't know that you can really say no.
No, you're absolutely right.
So
But I don't know if we can just, this city might not be able to say, no, you can't put it in the right of way or put a pole. We might have to say you can't put it on our poles.
is this city right away or Delta right away?
Both of these are city right away.
Okay.
So from us, we need to have a motion that says, yes, go ahead
Use your pole.
and build and replace the pole at your expense. And also put your equipment on it. That's what you want from us?
Now, the thing is we have an agreement we have to work out with them. Again, in the agreement, they have reviewed it and some of the comments they brought back were, we have like 30-day invoicing requirements.
Okay.
They want to extend it out to 90 days or 120.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
150.
So there's a few of them and I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And then also there is in this document, there is a schedule of fees that were never determined because some of these can't be determined as a blank slate. They have to be done by certain projects. So one of the things is how much we want to charge annually for rental of the pole. To allow them to
Okay,
attach.
so it's really, there's a lot of stuff we have to go through here.
there's only a couple of financial things in here, and you just, it's focused. The aesthetics are within the city. Ordinance. The things that concern me in here are, they don't want to pay invoices for 120 days.
Plus
Which,
31,
what's that?
plus 31.
Plus 31.
Yes, that's what's in there.
But I mean, they've taken all of the timeframes and extended them out inordinately. And that's the part that I think we need to respond back on.
What do we have some of their poles now, some of their they're using part of our facilities already like that. The tower, is there any others? other
No,
than the-
I don't think we don't have any wireless facilities on any of our poles right now.
How is their schedule? How's their record of payment in the past?
Well, it's one payment a year and it's not been an issue.
It's not finished because I thought years ago there was one of the providers that was in arrears big time, but maybe that wasn't them.
No.
Okay.
So instead of paying 30 days, they're going to pay 120 days or whatever it is. But they're paying.
That's their
Just charge interest
Yeah.
for, quarter of a year. Yeah.
Can I ask, what is the ask of the board here today? So at the end of the day, ultimately, your motion is going to be to approve the agreement. And so the question is, are we in a position where staff is making a recommendation on the agreement to be approved, or are we taking discussion relative to their proposal? What's the intent of staff?
I guess the intent is to fill in the areas of the blank fees, plus trying to get a consensus of the board to say if they're willing to change these days.
What, do we have that in front of us? I see the reports. I see the blank thing, but do I see anything that's specific to this?
Well, let me suggest this then, because and that's helpful, Robin. I think what the question is getting board feedback on the form agreement and the request to change the form. If the board's response is we're not inclined to change our form, then Robin takes that back to AT&T and comes back to the board with a final agreement. And then the question is do you approve this agreement? So it's a two-step process here. Now, you could approve it today if we're ready to go and you're comfortable with that and you have a fee, or you can go back to them. And that's why I asked what staff's preference is. Are you looking for a motion today if the board is comfortable today?
It would be nice if the board is.
Do we have poles that are 40 feet high above the ground to just throw in at will? Or is this a supply chain possible issue?
You're talking about poles that we have like down at the shop?
Wherever at your access?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe we have those.
Yeah.
Okay.
But regular wires are gonna be
They're
hung
gonna
on that
pay
as
for the
well,
pole
right?
anyhow.
If
Yes.
it isn't available.
So
I see what
will
you're
we
saying,
have,
yeah.
so we'll have to
Mhm.
put in a bigger pole.
Yep.
Attach their antenna to the top.
No, they would.
They would do that.
They
do
would,
that.
but then we need to reattach the other wires at a lower level, I assume.
No, you would keep them in the same level.
So now we need to take the wires and bring them up.
No. At the existing level is what you mean.
Yeah,
They would go back at the existing level. The wires would not
Right.
go up and down.
And okay, I'm okay with it, but we've still got to reattach those
Yeah.
lines to the pole, to the new pole.
Yes. And that's part of, in the fee schedule. We can charge for that
That's part of the make ready.
to make ready. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the best, my recommendation on that fee only is to make it as is noted in the fee schedule already, to be determined. Because again, each project is going to be different. If you have Verizon just sticking a wire on the pole, there might not be a make ready fee. But in this case, they're asking to remove the pole, so we have to disconnect everything, put a new pole in, and then connect everything back.
So it's at our cost.
So that's at our cost. And then that's but that's determined in there already. The other portions that are not are something to do with. We have a right to charge an annual fee to attach to our poles. What do we want that fee to be at?
That also has to be reasonable as seen by FCC though.
Well, that's the FCC person come in.
Do they have authority over us for that?
Yes.
Yes.
You see, yes.
Yeah.
I thought.
They don't dictate it, but it has to be a fee that they deem to be reasonable. So you can't just say it's gonna be
And you look at other
50 grand per.
Yes, that's what I actually, I contacted Dover, I contacted Milford, contacted Rehoboth Beach and Wilmington. Never got a response back from Wilmington. Milford and Rehoboth Beach charges the maximum allowed by the FCC, $270 a year for the right of way fee or to attachment to the pole. Dover only charges $50 per attachment. The reasoning for the 270 from Rehoboth and Milford is because that's what the FCC allows. They weren't trying to reinvent the wheel, so they just said, let's do 270.
Can we do
They would
two-
wish they could do more.
Can we do 270 and any escalators that are approved by the FCC?
Like it.
So we looked into this and there are escalators that are approved by the FCC. So it's technically higher than 270 right now. The question is I don't know what that is and it isn't abundantly clear. So 270 is the safe, clear, easy answer. But to answer your question,
You can break new, ground there, Earl, no problem with that.
presumably, I don't have it here today.
I see Milford smart and gives prices for the future for a lot of their things. That'd be
Not in this case. I think, yeah, in a lot of
no, in a lot of
those.
cases.
Yeah.
So to your point, Earl, though, I think what would be perhaps to move this along, if that's the will of the board, the motion on the fees would be 270 plus any allowable escalators on an annual basis. And then we would have to go and confirm what that
On a
is.
current or annual basis.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I think that
Next
would be,
year.
I think that would be good because we have pole attachment charges now that have been changed in how many years? You went through all this.
Before I was born.
Yeah. before you- So, and
That's true.
and again, it's not big money, but still we're losing money because we're not following through on this.
So if I can make a suggestion, just in terms of, so the agreement is our form agreement. I think the changes they are requesting are on the time periods, and they're as noted in the red line. You can say no, you can say we respectfully decline, our form is our form. So I think that's the first
We
question
haven't
to
seen the form,
discuss.
At least I. it's not-
Yeah, I sent it to you out and I asked if anybody needed a hard copy.
Oh, that's my fault then.
Yeah.
And then the second question is specifically, I think it's just the annual fee, right, Robin?
Well, there are other fees on that fee schedule list that I also sent out. That's
What's staff's recommendation?
the big thing about the other fees, which talks about a pole transfer fee, unauthorized attachment discovery fee, unauthorized attachment daily fee, and the storm restoration fee. Not a lot of other municipalities even had any documents to look at. There is something from the city of Seaford that they've come up with some numbers. My take on it is the pole transfer fee and the storm restoration fee is another fee that can be
To be
to
determined.
determined. Because again, it's going to be easier to transfer something that's just a wire than it is to transfer that antenna or other stuff. So we can put it at maybe cost plus 15%.
Or 20.
Yeah, whatever the board wants to come up with on those two fees. But the other more the unauthorized attachment fees. That's if we go out and say, okay, AT&T, you've put a antenna on this pole that you're not supposed to. I take them more as like, we call it a fee here. It's a fine. It's just that it's like doing a building without building permits. The city can fine. Seaford come up with $150 for the discovery fee and $5 per pole for a daily fee. So after we discover it, we can charge them $150 because we discover it. Then we can charge them $5 every day until they fix it. In the agreement, we also have the right after 30 days, we can take it down ourselves and charge them for it. That's in the agreement.
What annual fee do you recommend?
The 270, that's regulated by the FCC.
$270
Per attachment per
Per year.
pole.
Plus what Mike.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going nuts here, but I'm looking at these fees that are here and they're thousands of dollars.
No,
No, that
That's-
you're looking at, so one of the things that Robin put together is he put out all the data that we could
Yeah.
find that had support for what others were charging. So if you look in there, there's municipalities, there's IOUs, there's
looking at-
co-ops.
I'm looking.
That's a study. That,
Okay.
what you're looking at is a study that was done by the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's fine, but what I'm looking at is municipality, 6,285. That's state municipalities, 5,900.
Just for reference, that was done in 2018 and the FCC, I believe, tightened a lot of
Well,
parameters.
okay, here's an FCC. Let me see here. That's wired. I want wireless. Public utilities, too small. That's wired. Wireless pole attachment rates by regulatory authority. If it's regulated, it's $14.99. If it's unregulated, FCC, $6,292.
We provided that to give context to data that's spread across. So
I
we-
understand that, but I'm looking at these things and the context is we're going to charge, what is it, $270? What does it say? 200 and what?
270.
$270 versus 6,000?
So then I'm just gonna, and Mike, you can slap me, but if you charge 270 like others around you, or if you come back and say, no, I'm gonna charge 6,000,
Mm-hmm.
they can go back to the FCC and the FCC can come back to us and slap our hands and say, no, that's not justifiable.
Okay, well,
Just as a,
and then I go back to the FCC and said, this is your own charge.
But it says mean, median, standard deviation, and then it says range. I have no idea what the definition of range actually is. Mean, median, mode, standard deviation, I get all of that. I don't know what range actually means.
The median alone is $695.
I'm gonna click on page then.
Well, and
What page are you on?
I'm probably, it doesn't have a page. It's like, it's on,
Well, the range is between.
several, I mean, several pages.
People-
There are pages all over the place that have rates on it. And none of them are under $1,000. Regulated, unregulated, or anything else you wanted to look at.
So I think we should, I think we should take and ask staff to go back and come back with the recommendations and the basis so that we can make a decision. But the range numbers are high to low.
Yeah,
So-
the ranges are,
But once again, I think the point that Austin was making or Robin was, this is an old report from 2018. And the market has greatly matured. And the FCC has made a lot of rulings since that time. So
I'd like to-
I don't think basing anything on a 2018 study.
we tried to give you the most amount of information that. we
There's
could, and
also
we pulled feedback.
table 14 also gives Delaware specifics as limited to direct costs.
Yeah.
Limited direct costs. So again, I don't know exactly what that means, but Delaware is one of the states that's singled out for.
Yeah, and Delaware does have that deals with Department of Transportation right away stuff. So they have rules for just the Department of Transportation right of ways. And I think they do not charge a annual fee. They just charge I think $100 application fee. That's it. I don't think they charge after that. If you keep it on their poles and they're okay with it. From what briefly I read of the state law.
So I think we should table this and have staff come back with more definitive recommendations. And if you want a sense of the board relative to the times, I think we can do that.
I don't have a problem with changing the time. I mean, who cares if it's quarterly or
No,
as
no,
long as
no,
they
no.
pay it.
You'd be okay with them paying invoices in 120 days? A
That
half a
includes
year?
electric consumption, because there's gonna be a meter.
Oh, you mean, oh, no. I thought it was just a general poll fee.
No,
You're
no,
talking
no.
about usage.
No. They're talking about not paying invoices for 120 days.
We're not removing stuff when need to be for 120 days instead of 30 days.
What invoices would we have?
The annual invoice, monthly invoice for usage.
Oh, usage invoices,
How hard is it for us to pull up these bills and send these bills out and get paid?
To actually send them out is not hard at all. It'll be,
Stamp it in an envelope, but as far as it is
Yeah.
to calculate it and send it out, how challenging is that?
System doesn't.
yeah,
System?
we just have to put in the rates that we're charging and it'll tell us the amount that they should be charged.
So having more time doesn't help us. It hurts us from a cash flow.
I mean, is it like, if we're going to, is it typical for big corporations like that to have longer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not, I mean, I don't know that you will be able to get them off that dime, will you? I mean, if that's their.
Yeah,
Our fiber tech agreement that we have has just about everything says 30 days.
30.
And that 30 days that's for pole attachment, not wireless facilities.
Yeah, that's just the boat for the wired stuff. Yeah.
I think it's 30, 60 days. Come after it.
I'm okay with going ahead with 270 and 60 days. Maybe we're making too much of this.
Yeah, I don't care much. I mean, if it's a big deal, I don't really care. We, it's not that big deal.
But then of the items in the schedule fees that needed to be addressed, there's a audit or inspection fee. Seaford put down $60. That's what they had, and that's what I'm recommending, the $60 fee. The make ready fee is to be determined. It's always been that way.
When did Seaford do their math? When did they do their math when they came up with these numbers?
They've done theirs, I think, several years ago. I'm not sure exactly when. They've never had anybody come before them with wireless stuff yet. That's the hard part. A lot of these are coming up. Dover's had some. Wilmington's had some. I think Milford doesn't. Milford just adopted theirs in April. And they don't have a lot of information either.
And you can see, I mean, and Aaron's on here, but there's been a lot of discussion like in Dewey and Rehoboth. Those are DP&L and they'll let you co-op. So it's a really a unique kind of spot because we are the closest to the coast that, we are our own power utility, electric utility. So this is kind of new to us. Whereas if you go farther west in the state, there's a little bit less in the highly dense areas like up in Newark and Newcastle. You have it again, obviously, because there's a demand for it. That's why, so I pinged DMEC to get as much data as I could from the other members, which that plays into this. And then we tried to use the study that was done by University of Pennsylvania as something to benchmark it against. But it's hard because there's just not that much data out there.
I think 270 or higher if approved by FCC.
Yeah, that's Mike's
You
suggestion.
just put that away.
Yes.
You want starting at 270 with an escalator each year?
As allowed by the FCC. Yeah.
Okay.
If approved by the FCC, that's right, as allowed by the FCC, just right.
Okay, so I'm looking down again so the inspection fees be 60. The standardized yearly would be 270 with the FCC. The pole transfer cost plus 15%. Because again, these projects are going to be different. The unauthorized discovery fee of $150.
20.
$20, you said?
No, do you want it 15% or 20%?
20%.
What's our standard policy?
There's some other things one of the things that the applicant had put in is any interest on late payments at 10%. That's one of the figures they've also put in. Do we want to do a 10 or do we want
For late
interest
payment,
payment?
for late payment.
10's good.
I think 10's good, but I would have it be less days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at, if that's 10%, do we want to put these fees that cost plus 10% to make it across the board?
Sure.
That puts you way down from 20%.
Yeah, I think we should be consistent
Yeah.
though, on what we charge, in development agreements and all these other things for cost plus. I mean, because otherwise we're gonna wind up with a disparity.
Instead of development agreements, are they cost plus 15%?
15.
15, I believe. The admin fees 15. Kim?
The admin fee is 15, but when we do miscellaneous water revenue, it's cost in 20%.
Yeah, I believe meters.
So we use 15 and 20.
That's why I was
And at that
20.
20%.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were,
Yes, that's
Being consistent.
okay. The unauthorized attachment discovery fee of $150. The unauthorized attachment daily fee of $5.
Yeah, I think
And then the storm restoration fee is cost plus 20%.
And there's the term, the days.
Yes, the terms and the days would have to be discussed, whether we want to keep it at 30. Or some of these things they put in at 90 days, some of them they said, I think 120.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of all over the board. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's spread out. I mean, the invoice one is the one that really gets me, but the other ones, there are all over the place.
When they talk about attachment fees and the invoice, licensee shall pay an invoice within, it's noted as 30, they want to go 120 days of receipt. And they want to, if they're for the unpaid, they want to add a 10% rate.
I would feel comfortable with 60 days across the board and just keep it at that, for all of them. So
I'm okay with that.
So and we okay with the 10% for unpaid invoices? Or do we go to 20% just like? Okay. 20%.
Hold on. It's tough to do these on the fly. In the interest question, I don't have the answer as I sit here, but one of the things you have to be careful with whenever you're dealing with interest is it has to be legal interest. So the question is does 20% exceed what would be legal interest? I don't know. I would have to verify.
Interest as in usury?
Correct.
I was gonna use that word.
But I thought our 20% was administrative costs,
Yeah.
Right,
not interest.
but late payment of invoices
Is interest.
is interest.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe we have to go to 10.
My credit cards are
If it's-
nowhere. I go out at 29.95.
I don't know. I'm just.
They took mine away.
Is there a reason it has to be voted on today?
I think they were to kind of start moving forward, yes, if possible.
But if
If
the
not,
board would feel more comfortable and council.
Council's recommendation would be to present a clean agreement that the board can vote up or down. For what that's worth.
With our comments. With what we-
The 20% is an administrative charge. It's not an interest fee
Correct.
for that we charge now, right?
I would feel much more
So
comfortable.
what we can do is put an interest in and then add a charge for administration. If you want 20%.
I don't feel comfortable doing this on the fly, like Mike
Yeah.
said.
yeah,
Like I said earlier, I would like to see a clean copy brought back so that we can have a final. I think staff has gotten the sense of the board. Other,
because if 20 is not allowable, I would go to what is allowable, I guess the limit.
And it was good discussion. I think that so to summarize the takeaway, on all of the points, which are essentially 30, they're now going to 60 days in terms of the time periods that they propose to change. The schedule of fee, I think Robin did a good job kind of clarifying what that'll be, and that'll come back. We need to look up the interest. And so we'll incorporate all of these changes in a clean document. They'll be presented to the board. The board can vote it up, vote it down from there.
So this could, a lot of this could be done in executive session, couldn't it, since it's a contract?
No,
No,
it's got to be a public discussion of it.
okay.
all right, so 60 days for all of the
Okay, I'll look.
timeframes
I missed it.
and 20% cost for the fees
Just transfer fee.
Plus-
And then.
Unless it's.
and a clean table here for the actual fees and the other ones. Okay. And then we'll put it on the October agenda. Okay. Proposal to seal crack on the oxidation ditch. And I think we agreed we're gonna pull this one.
Yeah, so I got an update from Josh. I don't know, Ben, if you have anything newer than what I have, but they're still waiting on a proposal for lining the inside of the one ditch that we would be drawing down to make the repair on the inside. They gave us a proposal to make the repair on the outside and on the inside. With the depth of that ditch and with the depth of the concrete in that ditch, I don't necessarily feel comfortable with trying to excavate from the outside to make that repair from the outside versus from the inside.
No.
If we are going to do it, it probably makes 100% sense to line that one section because we are going to draw it down utilizing the bypass pump.
There's no indication this is increasing. There's no, it's not dynamic. It's not happening.
No.
It looks like, as we looked at it again when we were there last week or with after the hospital left. And it looks like it's just movement because it sealed itself at one point. And
It doesn't
it's,
sound good.
and it's, but I mean, it's damp.
When concrete moves,
Yeah, that's, and the other reason, so I just said, these are the two oxidation ditches. The one ditch that's closest to the canal is the one we're talking about. And there's slight weepage. Weepage isn't even the right word. It's damp on the surface from it. But the second one is there's a second crack where the two ditches split coming out of the headworks. And we don't have a proposal for the repair of that one. And that one apparently has been there for a long time because it's braced in place. None of us have ever seen it because it's directly under the staircase. So you walk down, and if you look through the grating, you can see a pole, but you can't see it from any other direction. So we don't know when it was done, how long it's been there, but it's another area that we need to get a repair on.
Yeah. And that rapid seal or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's very
Exactly.
Flex
what we-
seal. Did you really?
Didn't, oh,
Yeah.
Well,
So you're recommending we get a new one.
I feel better or worse.
Recommending we wait until we get the final proposal.
Now, which one are we talking about? The generator or the?
the oxidation
Or the
ditches,
oxidation.
cracks.
Yeah, we're still on the crack. Okay, sorry. I thought I already said pull it.
Yeah, so I don't know why they haven't tried nuclear grade duct tape yet, but whatever.
How long is it gonna take to get this thing set up and done though, do you think?
I don't think the repair is really that timely. It's really pumping it down and then when it's pumped down, they would get in that ditch and then make the repair.
Or heading into the right season?
Mm-hmm. Blows drop off. Yeah.
all right.
Okay. All right, we move to old business. Temporary generator, pump station 4.
So this is just coming back. It was on the previous agenda, but there was some questions on whether or not it had viability to operate more than just pump station 4. It's not the ideally sized generator for pump station 4, but it does have the ability to run single phase all the way up to Delta 3 phase that we have at pump station 4. So there is ability to move one way or another. I know we wanted to answer that question from the last meeting to this meeting, but I know that there was some back and forth on whether or not we could potentially have a discussion with Sussex County under the mutual aid agreement to have a generator on site. And we also have the bypass pumps there readily available. So we kind of have a couple different options. I just wanted to bring this back up to the board with an update from when we had our last meeting to this meeting, just to allow everybody to understand that we did through an actual electrician and Inframark. They confirmed that this would be a solution from not just one pump station.
And the $55,000, that's for a used unit that we
That's
have
a
on
used-
site.
That's a used.
What's a new unit? I know they're probably harder to
More than
get.
55,000. If I had to take a guess, I mean, so the bypass pump was, I think the bypass pump was like 58 or 60,000. The generator, temp generator that size, probably 80 plus, if you can get them. It's the next piece. But again, this is just bringing it back to help answer questions that were existing in the previous
I forget that this is a portable generator.
portable unit.
There's
Got it.
one there now. It's not operating, isn't it?
No, yeah, the Carter, this is actually for the unit that's on site.
Yeah. So you can take that away, the old one away.
No, this quote is to purchase that unit that's on site now.
Oh, I thought there was an old one there and I thought that was permanent.
They took that, yes, there's an old one on the backside.
Yes.
As part of the Headworks project,
Yes.
we're going to put a permanent unit there. And then this temporary would be kind of in the fleet, similar to the
Oh, okay.
bypass pump.
So you are going to replace the old one with a
Yes,
permanent
most definitely.
and then use this for,
But one of the things that we've talked about is we're trying to streamline having bypass capability of all our
Yes.
pump stations, because that provides an added redundancy. If you lose power, the bypass pump can be put in place. You can put the floats in place, and it allows.
Okay.
And we use the heck out of that bypass pump.
You know, the pump station 4, pump station 8 upgrades would include
a connection.
a new, well, a connection, but also a new generator.
Eight's generator is actually really good. 3 is the one that would need to be done. All of our big name ones we would be.
So, do we need a motion on this one? Then it's you.
It's completely up to you. So like I said, the last board meeting where we were at, we had a discussion on whether or not we were gonna ping the county and whether or not they would be able to provide a temporary for the time being. Or it was procuring this or procuring another bypass pump.
Could the county have better buying power than us and get it at a better price?
It's a great question. I know, Tom, you had spoken with Hans and you had brought up the idea of what sizing they had on site.
And they said that basically what Hans said was that the generator they have or generators they have would be equivalent in size to this one that we have, that we would be purchasing. You know, my thought is that it would be part of our mutual aid package with the county. So we could loan it to them, they could loan it to us, because we are competing for their fleet of services with everyone else. So, you know, if the generator is there, they're more than willing to give it to us, but there's no guarantee it will be.
It's kind of like the belt filter press. They had it, they lent it to us. They did not charge us for it. It was a beautiful thing, helped us out very much.
Then it went away.
So
Yeah, it went away. And that's just to add it in the context, right? We're paying about, if you look at the invoices, we pay about $1,680 to rent it per month.
And
Why don't I just talk to Hans, see if he can order it, see what it would cost, and if it's gonna take too long or be too much, call the ball.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I just wanted to put everything back in front of you.
because one of the things, the conversation I did have with Hans was, did it make sense for us to buy the generator or buy a bypass pump? And the concern is if you buy the bypass pump, you don't have bypass in all the stations yet. And so you've got that issue. And, you know, his gut feel was you need one of both.
How many of our present pumping stations have connections for a generator?
I think a majority of them do.
Do
The
they?
older stations, the smaller stations, I think are more of a concern. But like this one, and I got to check with Hans how his is. This is actually set up to service 4 different voltages. So that's what I want to see. If Hans has something that's similar, I shouldn't say Hans, the county.
So Austin, do you think we do need a permanent generator?
Well,
Own a generator.
So it's always, so you go back and forth between having a permanent and stationary. Stationary allows you to take to all your smaller pump stations.
Mhm.
All the new pump stations that are getting installed, like one lift stations.
Yeah.
So Lewes Waterfront Preserve, Tower Hill, what will be Fisher's Cove. All of those come as a package unit, and then the generators are installed. So all the newer units have generators. And there's a huge lead time right now on generators. So I think, Ben, you can correct me, Tower Hills was almost like 10 months. And I think Lewes Waterfront Preserve is right around 12 months.
So again, maybe I'll ask the question this way. Are you recommending that we have this generator?
I think I brought this back to you for an update. I think Earl's path makes sense.
Well,
Hanging
I'm-
ponds.
What I was gonna say was, we could, maybe if it would be easier, we could give you authority to go ahead with it. With a contingency that if you talk to Hans and you could get it less expensive from him. I don't know.
That kind of makes sense from the perspective of we're spending all this money on the rental fee,
Right.
which we're throwing away.
That's what I'm saying is, if he thinks we should have it,
So if Earl.
or have it, or one for less money,
I thought that's what I said.
It's essentially,
then that's my recommendation.
it's
Go ahead.
emergency backup.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now, if he had one, if he could buy one cheaper, what's that cost versus buying a used one and just have him call?
Let staff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we
I
have a
think we
motion?
probably agree is what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say the same thing I did?
Yes,
Okay.
not as well, maybe.
Or no, probably a lot better, but that's all right.
I was praised in their authorized staff to proceed with the purchase of the generator not to exceed $55,000.
So you can make the motion, Earl.
But I would also say that if you find that it's better to buy one that is new and it costs, I would leave it totally at his discretion.
No, I wouldn't.
I'm not sure we can do that.
I don't authorize him to spend 80,000.
Well,
But he's not gonna do something.
Yeah. Remote control.
Spend 80, get a Rolex.
does a
Free trip.
temporary generator include a small modular reactor?
Yeah.
I think, it's the board, it's up to the board at the end of the day, but I think, I would put a cap. And so if to your point, Earl, if it's brand new and it's 60,000 or brand new and 70,000, you're comfortable with that, but I would put a cap. So I would authorize them with a cap.
How long have we had it there?
The temp?
Yeah. And was it used when we got it?
Well, they switched out. So the first one was United Rental. United Rental went away and the Carter came in. So yes, it was used when they brought it in. The temporary's been there for about a year.
It was used when we got it.
Yes. It cycles through because it's not running continuous. The only time it would run is if you actually lose power.
I'm okay with $70,000 as a cap. At your judgment.
So that's to get a new one, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, it's
Not to pay for the old one.
to satisfy the need. Functional. Doesn't have to be new, but it has to be worth the 70.
So Earl is authorizing staff to purchase a generator, to purchase the temporary generator at pump station for a cost not to exceed $70,000.
Yes.
Is that your motion, Earl?
My motion, Earl.
Is there a second?
Okay, second.
Anything discussion? All
And
those,
this is really, it's not a temporary. It's to be a BPW piece of
Asset.
equipment.
well, it's a permanent asset,
Okay.
but it's a
fine.
temporary generator that can be moved to
Yes,
use wherever.
but it's not just temporary.
Yes.
Correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
It's okay, you're outvoted anyway.
Yeah, it's happening sometimes. I know, yeah.
Go forth.
Okay.
All right, so next one is open forum general discussion on the 21-22 audit performed.
So this is just basically coming back. The board has a chance, it was presented last board meeting, the board had a chance to review, provide comments if there were any. I know Richard had connected with Kimberly and Kimberly passed those comments on to ZNA for a future audit as well. Just some kind of high level comments that can be incorporated in the next year. So this is just kind of solidifying it, voting on what was presented last month.
I make a motion that we accept the auditor's report.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Properly stated.
Okay, call to the public. Do we have?
If they have any questions, they can raise their hands, but there's no
Yep.
hands raised.
Okay, call to the press.
There it is on there.
He's not raising.
Probably watching the Phillies.
Motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Break.